Have you ever had your heart shattered so completely that you thought you'd never love again? That was me 2 years ago. My name is Daniel, and I'm about to share the most painful, and ultimately the most beautiful, chapter of my life. This is the story of how betrayal nearly destroyed me, how I rebuilt myself from the ground up, and how love found me in the last place I ever expected to look. It's about learning that sometimes the person you're meant to be with isn't the one you imagined at all. If you've ever felt broken, if you've ever wondered if you'd find love again, or if you've ever been surprised by where life takes you, this story is for you. The rain was coming down hard that October evening, the kind of relentless Portland downpour that makes you question every life choice that brought you to the Pacific Northwest. I stood outside Marcus's apartment building, thumb hovering over the call button, my stomach twisted in knots I couldn't quite explain. We'd been together for 3 years. 3 years of building a life, of Sunday farmers market runs and late-night conversations about adopting a dog. 3 years of me believing I'd found my person. But for the past month, something had shifted. Marcus had become distant, his phone always face down on the counter, his kisses perfunctory and distracted. When I'd asked him about it, he'd blamed work stress, a big project at the architecture firm. I'd wanted to believe him. I pressed the button. Daniel. His voice crackled through the intercom, and I noticed he didn't sound surprised, almost like he'd been expecting me. Can I come up? We need to talk. Silence stretched for 3 seconds too long. Yeah, come up. Elevator ride to the fourth floor felt eternal. I caught my reflection in the mirrored walls. 28 years old, dark hair wet from the rain, green eyes that looked more tired than I remembered. When had I started looking so exhausted? Marcus opened the door before I could knock. He was wearing the navy sweater I'd given him for his birthday, the one that made his brown eyes look almost amber in certain light. But tonight, those eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. Hey, he said, stepping aside to let me in. The apartment smelled different, not bad, just wrong, like someone else's cologne lingered in the air. My throat tightened. Marcus, what's going on? I kept my voice steady, even as my heart hammered against my ribs. And please don't say nothing again. I deserve the truth. He closed the door slowly, leaning against it. For a moment I saw something in his expression, regret maybe, or shame. Then his jaw set in that stubborn way I knew too well. Right, he said quietly. You do deserve the truth. World seemed to tilt slightly. Been seeing someone else. 4 words. 4 simple words that detonated like grenades in my chest. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. How long, Daniel? How long? 6 months. Room spun. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of coming home to him, of making plans for our future while he was building a separate life with someone else. Who is it? My voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from someone else's body. Marcus ran his hand through his sandy blonde hair, a nervous gesture I'd always found endearing. Now it just looked guilty. Does it matter? Yes, it fucking matters. David, from the firm, of course. David, the senior architect Marcus had mentioned casually a dozen times. David with the great eye for design. David who'd invited Marcus to networking drinks that turned into late nights at the office. Brought him here. I looked around the apartment, at the couch where we'd watched movies, at the kitchen where we'd cooked together, at the bedroom door that was slightly ajar. In our space. It's my apartment, Daniel. You never moved in, remember. You always said you weren't ready for that level of commitment. Accusation in his voice shocked me. So this is my fault, because I wanted to make sure we were solid before signing a lease together. No, that's not, he sighed, pressing his palms against his eyes. Look, we want different things. You're always holding back, always keeping one foot out the door. David, he knows what he wants. He's ready for something real. Irony would have been funny if it hadn't hurt so much. I've been holding back because something felt off, and apparently my instincts had been right. Get out, Marcus said, straightening up. I'm sorry it ended like this, but it's over. I need you to leave. I stood there, rainwater pooling on his hardwood floors, and realized I didn't even recognize the man in front of me. Where was the guy who'd held me during my father's funeral? Who'd surprised me with weekend trips to Cannon Beach just because? That person had been a fantasy. Or maybe I had been. I left without another word. The next 3 months were a blur of gray days and darker nights. I threw myself into work at the bookstore I managed, staying late to reorganize shelves that didn't need reorganizing, recommending novels to customers while my own love story crumbled into a cautionary tale. My best friend Riley, fierce, tattooed, and fiercely loyal, tried everything to pull me out of my spiral. "You need to get out of your apartment," she'd say, showing up with Thai food and terrible reality TV. "You need to remember that Marcus was just one person, not the entire universe of possible love." But it didn't feel that way. It felt like I'd invested 3 years into something that had been built on sand, and now I couldn't trust my own judgment. How had I missed the signs for 6 months? What did that say about me? Scroll through social media late at night, a form of self-torture I couldn't seem to stop. Marcus had made his relationship with David official within weeks. Photos of them at gallery openings, at the same restaurants Marcus and I used to go to, making the same inside jokes I'd thought were ours alone. The comments were what killed me. "You guys are so cute together." Finally, Marcus found his person. Relationship goals. I wanted to scream at my phone. I was supposed to be his person. We were supposed to be the goals. My sister Emma called from Boston every few days, her therapist voice gentle but firm. "Daniel, you're allowed to grieve this, but you're not allowed to let it define you. Marcus's choices don't diminish your worth." Intellectually, I knew she was right. Emotionally, I felt like a fool. By January, the rawness had dulled to a constant ache. I'd stopped checking Marcus's social media. I'd boxed up the few things he'd left at my place. A jacket, some books, a coffee mug that said "World's Okayest Boyfriend" that now felt like a prophecy. Riley convinced me to join her gym, claiming endorphins would help. I went mostly to shut her up but found something meditative about the routine. Early morning runs along the Willamette River, the city still quiet, the water reflecting pink and gold as the sun rose. It was during one of those runs that I first saw him. He was sitting on one of the benches overlooking the river, sketch pad balanced on his knees, completely absorbed in whatever he was drawing. Even from a distance, there was something striking about him. The way the early light caught his profile, the intensity of his focus, the casual grace of his posture. I slowed my pace without meaning to, curiosity pulling at me. He had dark curly hair that fell over his forehead, olive skin that suggested Mediterranean heritage, and when he glanced up for just a second, eyes so deeply brown they were almost black. He wore paint-stained jeans and a vintage band t-shirt despite the February chill, completely unbothered by the cold. For a moment our eyes met. He gave me a small, polite smile, the kind strangers exchange in passing, then returned to his sketch. I kept running, but something about that brief moment stayed with me. Not attraction exactly. More like recognition, though I couldn't say what I was recognizing. He was there the next morning too. And the morning after that. By the fourth day, I realized he was part of the landscape I'd come to rely on. The bridge, the river, the early dog walkers, and the artist on the bench. I found myself looking forward to that moment when our paths would align, when he'd glance up and offer that small smile. On day 7, my water bottle slipped from my hand as I ran past, rolling directly toward his bench. He stopped it with his foot, graceful as a dancer, and held it out to me. "Thanks," I said, slightly breathless from the run. "No problem." His voice was warmer than I expected, with the faintest trace of an accent I couldn't place. "You run this route every day?" "Trying to. You draw here every morning?" "When the light's right." He gestured at his sketch pad, and I caught a glimpse of what looked like the bridge rendered in charcoal, all dramatic shadows and architectural detail. "The way the sun hits the water around this time." "It's perfect. It's really good," I said and meant it. "Are you an artist?" "Trying to be." That small smile again. "Right now I'm mostly a barista who draws in his spare time." "Still counts." I surprised myself by sitting down on the edge of his bench, even though I had no idea what I was doing. "I'm Daniel, Adrian." He offered his hand, and when I shook it, I noticed paint under his fingernails, calluses on his fingers from holding brushes or charcoal. "Nice to meet you, running man." I laughed, the sound rusty from disuse. "Is that my superhero name now? Unless you prefer something else." "Marathon guy, cardio king." "Daniel's fine." We talked for maybe 10 minutes, nothing deep, just easy conversation about the city, the weather, the best coffee shops in the neighborhood. Adrian was from San Francisco originally, had moved to Portland 8 months ago for a fresh start. He worked at a cafe in the Pearl District, spent his free time trying to build a portfolio for gallery submissions. When I finally stood to finish my run, I felt lighter somehow. Like I'd remembered how to do something I'd forgotten, how to connect with another human being without the weight of my past crushing down on me. "See you tomorrow?" Adrian asked, already turning back to his sketch. "Yeah," I said. "See you tomorrow," and just like that my mornings had a new rhythm. 3 weeks passed in this new pattern. Each morning I'd run past Adrian's bench, we'd exchange greetings. Sometimes I'd stop to talk, sometimes I'd just wave and keep going. It was comfortable, undemanding, exactly what I needed. He never asked about my life beyond surface pleasantries, and I appreciated that. With Adrian, I wasn't the guy whose boyfriend cheated on him. I was just Daniel, the runner who sometimes stopped to admire his artwork. Then came the morning it rained too hard for outdoor sketching. I almost skipped my run entirely, but cabin fever won out. I threw on my rain jacket and headed out into the downpour, expecting to have the path to myself. So I was surprised to find Adrian huddled under the bridge overhang, attempting to keep his sketch pad dry while capturing the rain-swept view of the river. "Dedicated," I called out, jogging over to him. He looked up, raindrops caught in his dark curls, and grinned. Stubborn is probably more accurate. I had this vision and couldn't let it go. I stood next to him, catching my breath. Up close, I could see the sketch was different from his usual work, more abstract, all movement and emotion rather than precise architectural detail. Rain rendered in smudged charcoal, the bridge barely visible through the storm. "It's beautiful," I said softly. "Melancholy but beautiful." Adrian studied me for a moment, those dark eyes thoughtful. "You know, we've been chatting for weeks and I've never asked, what do you do when you're not running in the rain like a lunatic?" "I manage a bookstore, Powell's actually." His whole face lit up. "The Powell's, the massive indie bookstore that's basically a Portland landmark. That's the one. I love that place. I get lost in there every few weeks and come out with books I can't afford but can't live without." He tilted his head. "Actually, there's a poetry reading there this Friday night, isn't there?" I was thinking of going. My heart did something complicated. "Yeah, we're hosting a local author collective. It should be good. I helped curate the lineup." "Would you?" Adrian hesitated, suddenly looking less confident. "Would you want to grab coffee after? I mean, if you're not busy. I'd love to hear more about how you choose what events to host." It wasn't a date. It was just coffee. Two people who'd become friendly acquaintances, taking that friendship slightly deeper. So why did my pulse quicken? "Sure," I heard myself say. "That sounds nice." Friday arrived with an unexpected attack of nerves. I changed shirts 3 times before work, which was ridiculous. This wasn't a date. Adrian probably wasn't even gay. We'd never discussed it, and I'd learned not to assume. Besides, I wasn't ready for dating. I was barely ready for friendship. The poetry reading drew a decent crowd, about 40 people packed into our event space, the air thick with the smell of old books and fresh coffee from our cafe. I spotted Adrian the moment he arrived, wearing dark jeans and a forest green Henley that made his skin glow like honey. He caught my eye and waved, and something in my chest did that complicated thing again. The reading itself was extraordinary. 5 poets, each with completely different styles, sharing work about identity, belonging, love, and loss. One woman read a piece about coming out to her Latina family that had half the audience in tears. A young trans man shared poems about claiming his name and his body with such fierce joy that the room erupted in applause. I glanced at Adrian during that reading. His eyes were bright with unshed tears, his hands clasped tight in his lap. After the last poet finished, people mingled and bought books. Adrian found me near the register, his smile soft and slightly overwhelmed. "That was incredible," he said. "Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad you came." And I meant it more than I expected to. We slipped out to the coffee shop next door, a quiet place with exposed brick and mismatched vintage furniture. Adrian ordered a cappuccino, I got my usual Americano, and we settled into a corner booth that felt separate from the rest of the world. "Can I ask you something?" Adrian said after a moment, fingers wrapped around his cup. "And you can totally tell me to mind my own business. Okay? You seem sad, not always, but underneath, like you're carrying something heavy." His eyes met mine, kind and careful. I recognize it because I've been there. My first instinct was to deflect, to laugh it off. But something about the way he asked, without pity, just genuine concern, made me want to be honest. Bad breakup, I said simply. 3-year relationship ended when I found out he'd been cheating for 6 months. It's been hard to move past. Adrian nodded slowly. That's brutal, I'm sorry. About you. The words came out before I could stop them. You said you moved here for a fresh start. He took a long sip of his cappuccino and I thought he might not answer. Then he set down his cup and met my eyes. I was engaged. To a man named Christopher. We'd been together since college, 7 years total. Everyone said we were perfect together. His laugh was bitter. Turns out perfect on paper doesn't mean perfect in reality. He wanted me to give up art, get a real job, settle into the kind of life that looked good to his family and colleagues. I realized I was disappearing into who he wanted me to be. You left, I left. Moved up here, started over. It's been lonely as hell, but I can breathe again. He smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. And I get to draw my weird charcoal sketches by the river without anyone telling me I'm wasting my time. We talked for 2 hours, our coffee long since gone cold. Adrian told me about growing up in a Greek family in San Francisco, coming out at 17, the complicated relationship with his father who still couldn't quite accept it. I told him about my sister Emma, about my own coming out at 22, about the bookstore and how it had become my sanctuary. We didn't talk about Marcus or Christopher again. We didn't need to. We both understood what it meant to rebuild yourself after someone else had tried to reshape you. When we finally left, the night was clear and cold, stars visible despite the city lights. This was really nice, Adrian said, shoving his hands in his pockets. We should do it again sometime. Should, I agreed. He hesitated, then said, look, I know we both have history, and I'm not looking to jump into anything, but I really like talking to you, Daniel. Would you want to maybe hang out, as friends who are getting to know each other? My heart was hammering, but I kept my voice steady. I'd like that. Good. His smile was sunrise bright. Because I was thinking you could help me find books for this project I'm working on, and in exchange I'll buy you coffee and try not to bore you with art theory. Deal. We exchanged numbers, and when we hugged goodbye I noticed he smelled like paint and coffee and something citrusy, bergamot maybe. It was a good smell, a safe smell. As I walked home I realized I was smiling. Over the next month, Adrian and I fell into an easy friendship. We'd meet for coffee, browse bookstores, occasionally grab dinner at the cheap Thai place near my apartment. He showed me his portfolio, hauntingly beautiful pieces that captured moments of solitude and connection with equal intensity. I introduced him to my favorite books, lent him novels I thought he'd love. Riley noticed the change in me immediately. Different, she said one evening, sprawled across my couch while I cooked dinner. Lighter. Is it that artist guy? Adrian's just a friend. Her skepticism was palpable. A friend you see 4 times a week and can't stop talking about. Have a lot in common. Daniel. She sat up, fixing me with her most serious look. I love that you're healing, but be careful, okay? Make sure you're ready before you catch feelings. Thing was, I didn't know if I was catching feelings or just enjoying having someone in my life who saw me clearly. Adrian never pushed, never expected anything beyond the moment we were in. When I had bad days, when something would remind me of Marcus and the ache would resurface, Adrian would just listen, or distract me with stories about ridiculous cafe customers, or drag me to his studio apartment to show me his latest work. His art was transforming. The melancholy pieces were giving way to something more hopeful, sunrise palettes, figures in motion, hands reaching toward each other. Healing too, I observed one evening, studying a canvas of 2 silhouettes standing close but not quite touching, the space between them full of gold light. Adrian stood beside me, arms crossed. Yeah, I think I am. Having someone to talk to helps. Someone who gets it. He glanced at me, and the air between us suddenly felt charged with possibility. I should have stepped back. I should have been sensible. Instead, I moved closer. Daniel, he said softly. What are we doing? I don't know, I admitted. But I don't want to stop. His hand found mine, fingers lacing together in a gesture that felt both foreign and familiar. We stood like that for a long moment, the painting in front of us full of light and longing, the real space between us crackling with the same energy. I'm scared, I confessed. Of getting hurt again, of trusting wrong. Me too. Adrian's thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. But I'm also scared of missing something beautiful because I'm too afraid to try. I looked at him then, really looked, saw the vulnerability in his dark eyes, the hope and fear warring in his expression. Saw someone who'd been broken and put himself back together just like me. Not ready to rush into anything, I said carefully, but I'm not ready to walk away either. Then let's not rush. Let's just see where this goes. When he kissed me, it was soft and questioning, a beginning rather than a conquest. His lips tasted like the mint tea he'd been drinking, his hand gentle as it cupped my face. I kissed him back and felt something click into place, not the desperate passion I'd had with Marcus, but something steadier. Something that felt like coming home. We pulled apart slowly, foreheads touching, both of us slightly breathless. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay," he echoed. And in his small studio, surrounded by artwork about healing and hope, we chose to be brave enough to try. The next 3 months were a study in patience and discovery. Adrian and I didn't rush. We didn't declare ourselves boyfriends or make grand pronouncements. We simply spent time together, learning each other's rhythms and quirks, building something slow and solid. Some days were easy, wandering through art galleries, cooking dinner together in my apartment while rain drummed against the windows, reading companionably on my couch with his feet in my lap. Other days were harder, when my insecurities would surface, or when Adrian's fear of losing himself would make him pull back slightly. We learned to talk through it. "I'm spiraling," I admitted one evening, staring at my phone where Marcus's engagement announcement to David had just popped up. "And I know it's stupid because I'm over him, but it still hurts to see him getting his happy ending when you're still figuring things out," Adrian finished. He took the phone from my hand and set it aside. "That's not stupid. That's human." He pulled me against his chest, and I let myself sink into the comfort of his arms, breathing in that familiar scent of paint and bergamot. "You know what I think," he murmured against my hair. "I think Marcus getting engaged has nothing to do with you. He's on his path, you're on yours. And your path led you to a river bench where some stubborn artist wouldn't stop drawing in the rain." I laughed despite myself. Stubborn is right. "Hey, it worked out." He tilted my chin up so I'd meet his eyes. "I found you, and you're kind of the best thing that's happened to me in a long time." My throat tightened. "You too." We kissed, slow and sweet, and I felt the anxiety drain away. Marcus could have his engagement. I had this real, honest connection with someone who saw my scars and didn't flinch. Riley approved wholeheartedly. "He's good for you," she declared after meeting Adrian for brunch. "He doesn't try to fix you or change you, he just appreciates you." Emma was more cautious when I told her about Adrian during one of our weekly calls. "I'm happy you're moving forward," she said carefully. "Just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, not just to prove you can move on." "It's not like that," I insisted. "Adrian is. He's different. He understands what it's like to rebuild yourself." "Then I'm glad you found each other." I could hear the smile in her voice. "When do I get to meet him?" "Maybe this summer. You could visit Portland." It's a date. Not everything was perfect, of course. Adrian and I both carried damage, and sometimes our broken edges caught on each other. There was the night I got jealous when a guy at the cafe where Adrian worked was clearly flirting with him. Adrian noticed my mood immediately. "Talk to me," he said when we got back to his place. "It's nothing." "Daniel." I sighed, feeling foolish. "That guy, the one who kept finding excuses to talk to you, he was into you." Adrian's expression softened. "And you thought I was interested back?" "No, maybe, I don't know." I ran my hands through my hair, frustrated with myself. "Marcus used to say I was too clingy, too jealous. I don't want to be that person with you." "Hey," Adrian took my face in both hands, making me look at him. "First, Marcus is an asshole who cheated on you, so his opinion on your behavior is worth exactly nothing. Second, I'm not interested in random cafe customers. I'm interested in you. only you. But what if? No what ifs. I'm choosing to be here with you every single day. You get to trust that or we can't move forward. His directness shocked me into honesty. I'm scared, I whispered. I'm scared of being blindsided again. I know, but I can't prove I'm trustworthy by defending myself against hypothetical situations. I can only show you through my actions, day after day, that I'm not going anywhere. He was right and I knew it. I had to choose trust, even though it terrified me. I'm sorry, I said. I'm working on it. I know you are, and I'm patient. He kissed my forehead. We've both got healing to do. We'll do it together. Adrian had his own struggles too. There was the week his father called, asking him to come back to San Francisco to stop playing artist and join the family restaurant business. Adrian withdrew into himself, spending hours at his easel, barely eating. I didn't push. I just showed up, brought him food, sat quietly in his studio, let him know I was there if he needed me. On the third day, he finally broke. He thinks I'm wasting my life, Adrian said, voice raw. That I'm embarrassing the family by working in a cafe and dabbling in art. What do you think? He stared at the canvas he'd been working on, a piece about identity and belonging, layers of color building into something complex and beautiful. I think I'm finally living my life instead of performing someone else's version of it. But it's hard, you know. Part of me still wants his approval. That's normal, I said gently. He's your father. Of course you want him to be proud of you. But I can't sacrifice who I am for that pride. Adrian's jaw set in determination. I did that with Christopher. I'm not doing it again. Then don't. You're an incredible artist, Adrian. Whether your father sees that or not doesn't change the truth of it. He looked at me with such naked gratitude that my heart ached. Thank you, he whispered, for believing in me. Always. In May, Adrian got the news that changed everything. He burst into the bookstore mid-afternoon, barely able to contain his excitement. They said yes. What? Who said yes? The East Side Gallery. They want to feature my work in their Emerging Artists Showcase next month. I came around the counter and pulled him into a hug, laughing at his exuberance. Adrian, that's incredible. They saw my portfolio and said my work had emotional resonance and technical skill, and he pulled back, eyes shining. Daniel, this could actually happen. I could actually make it as an artist. You already are an artist. This is just the world catching up. He kissed me right there, in the middle of the bookstore, in front of customers and my staff, and I didn't care one bit. The next month was a whirlwind of preparation. Adrian painted feverishly, selected pieces for the show, agonized over framing and placement. I helped however I could, brought him meals, listened to him rehearse his artist statement, held him when the anxiety threatened to overwhelm him. The night before the opening, we lay in his bed, tangled together in the darkness. What if no one comes, he whispered. What if they hate it? Then they're idiots with no taste. I kissed his shoulder. But that's not going to happen. Your work is beautiful, Adrian. It speaks to people because it's honest. I want you there tomorrow, front and center. Wouldn't miss it for the world. The gallery opening was everything Adrian deserved and more. The space was packed with people, artists, collectors, critics, friends. Adrian's work hung on the walls like captured emotion, each piece telling a story of pain and healing, loneliness and connection. I stood in front of my favorite, the painting of two silhouettes with gold light between them, and marveled at how far we'd both come. 6 months ago, I'd been broken and bitter, convinced I'd never trust again. Now I was here, watching the man I loved achieve his dreams, feeling proud and grateful and so incredibly lucky. Riley appeared beside me, nudging my shoulder. He's talented. He is. You're in love with him. I didn't bother denying it. Yeah, I am. Does he know? Not yet, but I'm going to tell him tonight. Adrian was across the room, talking animatedly with a gallery owner who was clearly interested in his work. He glanced over, caught my eye, and his whole face lit up with joy. My heart felt too big for my chest. We celebrated at Adrian's favorite restaurant, a small Greek place that reminded him of family meals in San Francisco. We ordered too much food, drank wine until we were pleasantly warm, and talked about the opening until we'd analyzed every moment. 3 pieces sold, Adrian kept saying, wonder in his voice. 3, and there's interest in commissions. You're on your way, I said, reaching across the table to take his hand. He laced his fingers with mine, thumb tracing familiar patterns on my skin. I couldn't have done this without you. You believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. That's what love does. The word hung in the air between us, charged with meaning. Adrian's eyes widened slightly. Daniel. I love you, I said, deciding to be brave. I know we said we'd take things slow, and we have, but I need you to know that what I feel for you, it's real. It's solid. It's nothing like what I had with Marcus. How is it different? His voice was barely a whisper. Marcus wanted me to fit into his life. You make space for me in yours while still being fully yourself. Marcus made me doubt my instincts. You make me trust myself again. Marcus was passionate but unstable. You're steady, like coming home. Adrian blinked rapidly, and I realized his eyes were wet with tears. I love you too, he said, voice breaking. I've been terrified to say it because I didn't want to scare you off, but Daniel, I'm so in love with you it sometimes overwhelms me. I stood, pulled him up from his chair, and kissed him in the middle of the restaurant. Let the other diners stare. Let the world see. I loved this man, and I wasn't hiding it. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were grinning like idiots. Take me home, Adrian murmured against my lips. Your place or mine. Doesn't matter, wherever you are is home. That night we made love with a tenderness that brought tears to my eyes. Every touch was a promise, every kiss a declaration. Adrian's hands mapped my body like he was memorizing art, and I worshipped him with equal reverence. Afterward we lay tangled together, his head on my chest, my fingers running through his curls. I was so broken when I met you, I said softly. I thought I'd never be whole again. You were always whole, Daniel. You just needed time to heal. Adrian propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at me. We both did, and maybe we needed to break before we could become the people we are now, people who could appreciate this. Us, this beautiful, messy, imperfect love we've built together. I pulled him down for a kiss, slow and deep and full of promise. I like our beautiful, messy, imperfect love. Me too. I woke to sunlight streaming through Adrian's studio windows, our studio now, since I'd finally moved in 3 months ago. His side of the bed was empty, but I could hear him moving around in the main room, probably already working on his latest commission. I padded out in my boxers and t-shirt, finding him exactly where I expected, at his easel, absorbed in a canvas that was taking shape in shades of blue and gold. You're up early, I said, wrapping my arms around him from behind. Couldn't sleep, had to get this idea down before it disappeared. He leaned back into my embrace, setting down his brush. Good morning, by the way. Good morning, I kissed the curve of his neck. What are you working on? A piece about beginning again. About how sometimes the path you didn't choose ends up being the one you needed all along. I studied the canvas, 2 figures walking toward sunrise, their shadows stretching behind them, hands clasped together. It's us, I realized. It's us, he confirmed. The piece I want to submit for the spring showcase, if that's okay with you. More than okay. My phone buzzed on the counter, a text from Riley. Brunch today. I want to hear all about the trip to meet Emma. I smiled, remembering last weekend in Boston. Emma had loved Adrian immediately, just as I knew she would. Watching them bond over art and books while sharing embarrassing stories about me had been one of the happiest moments of my life. "Riley wants brunch," I told Adrian. "Sounds good, but first," he turned in my arms, his smile bright and genuine. "I have something for you." He pulled a small wrapped package from his workbench. I unwrapped it carefully, revealing a leather-bound sketchbook filled with drawings, portraits of me reading, me laughing, me sleeping, me lost in thought at the bookstore. "You drew me." "I've been drawing you since the day we met," Adrian admitted. "You were so beautiful there by the river, even sad. I wanted to capture it. And then as I got to know you, I couldn't stop. Every expression, every moment, I wanted to preserve them." I flipped through the pages, seeing myself through his eyes. Not broken, not damaged, just loved. "This is the most beautiful gift anyone's ever given me," I said, voice thick with emotion. "You gave me my life back," Adrian said simply. "This seems like the least I could do." I set the sketchbook aside and cupped his face in my hands. "Marcus was wrong about me. Christopher was wrong about you. We're not too much or not enough. We're exactly right for each other." "Exactly right," he agreed. As we kissed in the morning light of our shared studio, surrounded by art and books and evidence of the life we were building together, I thought about how far I'd traveled from that rainy night in October when my world had shattered. Marcus's betrayal had felt like an ending, but it was actually a beginning. The beginning of finding myself again, of learning to trust my own worth, of becoming someone who could recognize love when it showed up unexpectedly on a river bench with charcoal-stained fingers and a gentle smile. Sometimes love doesn't find you when you're looking for it. Sometimes it finds you when you're learning to be whole on your own. Sometimes the person you're meant to be with is nothing like the person you imagined. And sometimes that's exactly how it should be. Adrian pulled back, his dark eyes full of warmth and promise. "I love you, Daniel." "I love you too." Outside, Portland was waking up to a beautiful spring morning. The river would be golden with sunrise. Artists and runners would be claiming their spaces along the waterfront. The city would continue its endless rhythm. And in our little studio apartment, surrounded by the evidence of our healing and our love, Adrian and I were writing our own story, one honest, beautiful page at a time.